Michael Hastings not only wrote this book, he wrote a Rolling Stone article that cost McChrystal his job. Dede and Jeremy, you guys bought this book. What does Michael Hastings' reporting give you that a lot of books about any war don't? What was his insight? What was his kind of organizing principle that you found so attractive?
Number one, the humor. I think it's a subject matter and an arena that we'd been looking into, and how do we talk about this? And I think you felt the same way. Michael had a way into the delusion and the folly that felt appropriate. So I think that's number one. Number two, the fact that he embedded the way he did and then didn't pull any punches.
Right.
Bailed out and said, this is my story. And I think we appreciated that. And it really, to us, was reflective of a systemic problem. Like, we could talk about this particular general and this particular moment and this particular assignment, and yet you could superimpose it on years and years and years of our past.
Obviously, something, David, that's important to you, and it's reflected in the book, is that this is not the typical war movie in the ways in which the troops look at their leaders. There's not that kind of fealty, that blind reverence, that you are willing to examine the motivations and the capabilities and the competence of the leader. Was that what made you interested in this point of view? Because you've been kicking around, I think, trying to figure out how to make a movie about conflict in the Middle East.
Yeah, I mean, I think in some ways the strange form that the movie has taken is very much a product of how I came to it, in a way. I had been looking for a way into a movie that might be set in either Iraq or Afghanistan, and I couldn't find it. I had assumed, given the tenor of my first two films, that it would probably be some kind of thing about the brutality and horror and sadness of the battlefield. But I couldn't find my way in. I couldn't find a human way in. I couldn't find the characters. I could see all the other stuff. I could feel the texture of it, but I just couldn't find the human way in. And then these guys brought me Michael's book, and I suddenly saw a different movie, a larger one, one that was about a much larger system, about the various strata of the military, and my way in was this character. I mean, I suddenly started to see the the hubris and the ambition and the vanity that was somehow at the center of the architecture of the larger system. So they, I suddenly started getting really interested in the idea of making a movie that was about both things, that was about that was about the delusion of the bubble of guys who were effectively the architects of this chaos, and then a film that was also about the horrible and grave consequences of the decisions made by that bubble for the guys on the ground, civilians and military. And I just loved the idea of making a movie that was about the kind of radical disconnect between the two. Knowing that it would mean that I'd be making a movie that would be kind of tonally schizophrenic. But I feel like that, I felt somehow right to me to make a movie that wasn't just about the insanity of war, but that was kind of a little bit insane itself.
Do you want to ask you about narrative filmmaking? Because you guys have worked on movies like Selma, The Big Short, 12 Years a Slave, Lost City of Z. They're about real life. They're about real events. They're loosely fictionalized. They're not documentaries, but they are about real issues and real people. What do you think narrative film in that kind of realm, the kinds of movies that you guys are attracted to as producers, can accomplish in terms of engaging an audience and shifting a conversation?
Well, I think it comes from a just tremendous respect for history, and I think one thing that Jeremy and Brad and I share and have always shared is an incredible instinct to look back and to open those doors and to try and attempt some modicum of truth. I think we feel we didn't set out to do that with that sort of marching order. We do it because we care deeply about story. But I only know how to understand myself if I go back and unpack all those horrendous boxes. And so it's I don't know how to explain it other than to say it's sort of our physics, you know? And I also think that one thing that film can do, or one thing that film does that interests us, is I think it can shine a light on complicity, and I think it can sort of put into a public sphere questions that hopefully you walk out of the theater thinking, wow, how did that get by me? How did I? And I think in particular of late, we are just marketed to until death, and so everyone assumes what they're told by the experts. But as citizens, it's our right to ask these questions. It's certainly what we were suggesting in The Big Short, and in many other things. I don't understand why it's not being discussed. It doesn't make any sense, and it's going to have. I mean, it is deleterious at best. So,
I would just add, I think that what David attempted, and I think, executed beautifully, is that you can be thinking about and wondering about the soldier, the individual soldier, and you can your sympathy and empathy can be with the individual soldier at the same time that you can be questioning the entire system by which that soldier ends up in that place. And I think that films about war tend to be, in general, there's a lot of different films about war, but I think that there seems to be a lot of that position of kind of, and I think
criticize the military, you're automatically anti-soldier.
Right.
This is anything
Yeah.
but that. It's meant
Yeah.
very much as a for the conscripts.
Yeah, and I think Michael Hastings conveyed that in the book, and one of the things that that his widow Elise Jordan said to us when we were after he passed away was that she wanted she said something like, just whatever you do, just please don't let it get sort of distorted and become a pro-war film.
Right.
As distinct from a pro-soldier film, and I think that that's something that David he did very beautifully.
David, Dede, and Jeremy, thank you guys for coming out.